Good day, everybody. Thank you for being back to our show, Mario Explore. If you like the show, please subscribe and give us some thumbs up. That helps to promote the show on whatever platform you're listening to. Like you know, the goal of our show is to bring to the public understanding on different things in life that are around us and have an influence on our life, and we might not really understand at the first glance. Today, in our show, we're going to have a real renowned economist coming from Austria, Dr. Barbara Kolm. She is the director of the Austrian Economics Center, president of the Hayek Institute, and professor at Austrian Economics at the University of Donja Gorica in Montenegro. Welcome back, everybody, to the show. We are really lucky, like I told you earlier, that we have Dr. Barbara Kolm with us today at Mario Explore. Barbara, welcome to our show. Thank you very much to be here today.
Thank you, Mario, for having me. It's a pleasure to be with you. Looking forward to our conversation.
Barbara, first of all, like I do with the other podcasts, I'd like you to tell me where you come from and what brought you to the economic field.
Well, I'm an Austrian. I grew up in the Alps, in the Tyrol, and until 2000 it was like, as I said, little institute publishing one book per year, nothing else. And now we have built it up with lots of academic conferences, lots of publications, lots of debates about what is going on, providing libertarian ideas to the world, or actually especially to Austria. And why I do this? Well, being an entrepreneur, an intellectual entrepreneur these days, I just have to spread those ideas because I think this is what brings our economy and our world forward. And therefore, I would like to continue with that. And not only in Austria, I'm currently in Bretton Woods, and I have a wonderful view to Mount Washington, and which reminds me of our beautiful Alps in Austria. But that's what we do. And with many, many other things, as an economist, we're involved in the Austrian Economics Center, but we can talk about that a little bit later. But the challenges, as you all know, we face currently are asking for are looking for new answers, and this is what we can provide.
Exactly. This is the goal of our show. You really piqued my curiosity about the Tyrol where you grew up, because I come from eastern part of Quebec where we have all the big mountain and everything. Can you describe me a little bit how it was back then there?
Yeah, wonderful. Lots of skiing, lots of tobogganing, lots of ice skating, being outside in the country every single day. And these days, I spend my time when I'm there in also skiing, of course, but walking up with the skins on the skis to the mountains, enjoying nature and being there. And it's still now it's more touristy, of course, than it was
Yeah.
when we grew up as kids. But I mean, like you, we also had two winter Olympic Games in Innsbruck in 64 and in 76. Well, 64 I cannot remember. I was not born then. But the 76 Olympics were great for us because we experienced the competitions. We experienced how the city adapted with the modern technologies and infrastructure. So this was great.
And you grew up in Innsbruck.
Yes, indeed.
Okay. Back then, how many people were living there?
Back then, the city had like less than 100,000. Now we have 150,000 plus students that are living there.
A lot of freedom, and I can understand now a little bit about, because this is the same thing for us. The place where I grew up was smaller place and more rural area than where you are, but this is the freedom that we had back then to be able to do about anything that we wanted. It's really, really important. uh, and you studied in the state that you said.
Yes, well, I studied mainly in Austria and Innsbruck at my alma mater, but I also spent some terms in Los Angeles.
Okay.
And that was fun too. Yes, because you experience as a young kid, you think the US is the country of the free and everything is possible.
Yeah.
And then you go there and everything is limited. So
You realize
no
the truth.
alcohol for people under 18 or under 21. As a student, you think this is important. As a grown up, you don't need that anymore. But back then it was important. And many regulations that you think you would not see in Europe back then. As a student in the 80s, we were very free, and there were no limitations. Now it's different. I mean, there are some countries, some states in the US that are much freer than many of our European states when it comes to regulation and to limitations.
I follow you on that because this is the same thing here. It seems to me that every day they're putting some new regulation and new law to restrain us on different things that shouldn't be. I remember when we grew up, we had bicycle which used to eat our chin, and we were bleeding all the time. And but and now you can't even have bicycle. You need helmet. You need all to be bulletproof on that, and to me this is something annoying, and especially everything that goes around managing our life. We have an issue here with that you may know or not know regarding the production of hydrocarbon. This is the base of my business, and they ban that. Even if we use it, find that so stupid to me, because we have a big resource and we can generate money. Good job for people, but just for political reason. And it seems that a lot of those regulations come from politics only, not common sense.
Well, unfortunately, I mean, it's, there's this good old term by Jim Buchanan, the Nobel laureate, public choice theory. And, he keeps asking, why are politicians being reelected? Because they give away other people's money without discussing on further what are the consequences if they do so. And unfortunately, many politicians shut down private initiatives and creativity, and that's a big issue for us. And this is why we are constantly engaged in with our institute, with the Hayek Institute, but also the Austrian Economics Center, to set up this to actually explain why we need a free foundation for our society, and why we need this entrepreneurial freedom, and why we need to unleash those creative forces and let trial and error work out. And if an entrepreneur takes a risk and, say in your case, wants to explore a field, why don't you allow him to do so? It's his own personal risk, it's his own money that he risks, and he will be held responsible for whatever mistakes he makes.
And especially when you don't impact the life of other people. I'm a firm believer that I shouldn't harm or do whatever to other individual. It's important. But I'm also a believer, like you just said, we need to have our freedom. Let's just get back a little bit, because I'm still curious. What brought you to the economic field? Why did you study that?
Well, I actually should have studied the law, because we have a old tradition in our family. I would have been the eighth or ninth generation of lawyers or law jurisprudence, and I did study the law. But to be honest with you, I was bored with it. Maybe I was way too young. When you're 17 at university, you don't really
Oh,
get the
yeah.
things. But I was more interested in supply and demand side, and in figuring out how markets work, and how we can be economically more free and independent, how we can create economic growth, how we can get people out of poverty.
That's great.
And not only poverty, but actually rise and elevate, how everybody can become wealthy. And these were the ideas that drove me, and that I found interesting back then. And still, it's every day is a challenge when you look up what is happening worldwide with all those geopolitical challenges that are coming up.
It is. It is. And that's great to hear that somebody, you were 17 back then, thought about those things, which are really important. But to me, when you look at that, they're grown up things. That's like uh, it's people who manage country who think about those things. And this is why I thought it was important to talk to an economist like you to demystify that. And this is what I want us to do today. How the economic people, how the economists impact our life, how we can you know play with that and understand the thinking behind that. And I think it's important. Talk to me a little bit about the Austrian Economics Center that you founded, and we'll go after that to your other job. But this thing is, I think it's something, and I don't know if you know the Montreal Economic Institute,
Yes,
but
Michel Kelly Gagnon.
yeah, Michel Kelly. That
He's actually at the same conference I am at right now.
sorry, oh, seriously. So and this is a think tank that I really follow here, and we I really enjoy and look at some of your stuff that on your website, and that remind me a little bit that. So, what brought you to create that?
Well, the Hayek Institute was always labeled as a neoliberal institute, which this is doesn't have anything to do what Hayek and the founders of the Austrian school, the great Karl Menger and Mises and all those gentlemen said. It was just labeled by a group that people either they had autoliberal or neoliberal or just, I would say, classical liberalism. That's actually what we all believe in. And then I thought we should not only focus on Hayek, but there are so many other different aspects that go together with the Austrian School of Economics that I've joined, or that I actually founded the Austrian Institute in 2007. And we really got started in 2008 with the first free market roadshow, which now is a tour traveling throughout Europe in like less than 2 months with 500 speakers involved, visiting every capital and discussing libertarian solutions to today's problems. Just to give you an idea, whether it was in 2015, we had long before 2015 discussed the migration issue. We had discussed that in 2012. We were discussing the crash of the markets in 2008, which in Europe was a sovereign debt crisis, and we discussed that in 2009, but not labeling as and blaming the financial industry. They said, in Europe it is a sovereign debt crisis. We have lived among our means, or our governments have spent way too much money. They have redistributed in the wrong way, and now we see the problem. We did not stick to the Maastricht criteria. Not having more than 60% of the GDP per capita debt. And we did not follow the own rules that we created in Europe for ourselves. And then all of a sudden you have this big mess, and we discussed it, and we came back. We have to live within our means. Our budgets need to be put on expenditure should be put on stop, and we need to cut taxes to make sure that you incentivize entrepreneurs and all those things. And we keep discussing that.
Yeah, in Quebec, just to let you know, I'm now at 53% income tax. So
Sorry for you.
yeah, but I follow exactly what you just said. And the sad thing, it's right now government to me are managing the money really poorly. It doesn't go where it should be. We Quebec is going to be on strike in a couple of days from now. All the workers, they need a pay raise, and I agree. Nurses and people work really hard. It's I don't mind spending money there, but there's other places that I find totally stupid. How is it received when your organization with the lawmaker and the politician? How do they see you?
Well, of course, they view us critically because we say things that are not nice and that are inconvenient
Yeah,
truths.
not nice to them,
Actually,
but nice
yeah,
to
but
the
it's
livelihood of people.
exactly, and it's inconvenient truths. I mean, we have been calculating, for example, the Tax Freedom Day, ever since I joined the Hayek Institute in 2000, and then we took it over for the Austrian Economics Center, and unfortunately, the days don't come earlier in the year, but it gets later in the year. I mean, this year it was way in August, and it's unbelievable. I mean, the US is even ahead of us. I mean, and Switzerland is top on that front when it comes to the tax freedom day, when people are finally free and work
Free
for
with
their
their
own
money.
pockets. Yeah, and work for their own pockets, and not for somebody else. I mean, don't get me wrong. Everybody who cannot help himself or herself needs our support. But this doesn't mean that we support everybody leaning back and that we support big government. We support efficient government, a little government, but not overboarding bureaucracy.
Yeah, and it seems right now that everybody goes overboard. We're doing business around the world with my partners and pretty much every country right now. As an example, Canada before the pandemic in Quebec had 280,000 worker. They hired 100,000 worker more during the pandemic to do the same job. Now there's 380,000 people working to do the same job than 280 before. And before, the job could have been done probably by 100,000 people. That this is, they're just throwing money, throwing our money out.
I think it's a question of productivity, and I think Europe and the West in general, will lose out on that competitive front because we are way too little competitive and way too little productive, in contrast to other places in the world, especially the middle and the Far East. And East Asia, China, those people they know what this terms productivity mean.
That's funny that you bring me to this direction because this is something regarding energy. Energy is my field. I produce oil and gas, and I start to see a shift in between east and west. Uh, and people find that funny, but I follow the number of rig working in the field, and those are drilling rigs. In North America, we used to have 2,000 rig working. Now we're down to 800. In the rest of the world, used to have 1,000 rig. Now they're up to 3,000. So when you talk about Europe and North America, we are just going down, and We're going to drive the price of our energy to the roof. And for competitiveness, that's going to kill us.
Well, especially also with some stupid regulations and the so-called Green Deal, which is important. Everybody respects our nature and our climate and everything, and we know that we need to be very innovative on that front. But trust me, there are companies who are able to use this innovative forces and create energy to a much more cheaper price if they are allowed to do so, and if they are not regulated or over regulated by government. And I'm just what we see in Germany. Germany is really in a very bad situation right now. They have shut down their nuclear power plants. The German industry has to buy the much more expensive nuclear power energy from France. They import something that they had before in a cheaper way. They reopened their coal mines, which is not good for the Green Deal, and for the original thinking of that. And now, and then they have kind of destroyed their own car industry by going e-car, and keep forgetting that the components for those e-cars are being bought and are being produced somewhere else, and the raw materials for them are for those cars are produced in Asia, and not in Europe. So this is a very bad, very 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 bad step. And having said this, all those single steps create, of course, make the rise of energy, the price of energy rise constantly. And then you're surprised if you have quantitative easing for years, and then you have the Green Deal, and then you have a third external shock, which is the COVID lockdowns, and then finally you have no access anymore to cheap Russian gas,
Yeah,
and
and
then
it's not
you're
it's not going to come back. You know that.
that exactly, and then people are surprised that we have huge high inflation and that the energy prices will not go down. I mean,
Yeah, actually, the governor of the Bank of Canada went out yesterday on that and saying that the carbon tax is responsible for 16% of the inflation right now that we created in Canada, which is fairly a big number when you consider that the people are suffering right now. A lot of people have the choice in between eating or or putting heat, and Canada is a cold country. You talk
yeah,
about Russia, and I know, since it's in my field, that right now the pipeline is already almost done to send the gas to China and India. I know that Moody's will go and buy all the cheap energy that he needs for his population, and
yeah,
I understand him. You know, this is what he need to do. If you look at India, they're really rich in coal. They don't
yeah,
have natural gas, they don't have oil, but they're gonna develop anyway. China is starting fire plant every day, almost, at least every week. And in the Western world, what I see, it's we're killing ourselves with you know the problem might be there, but the real people with solution are not consulted. You know, this is one of the big issue. It's where like people like us in oil and gas were ostracized all the time. But we do know how to do carbon sequestration. We do know how to work with the ground, and we do know how to produce cheap energy in an efficient way. That's really important, I think, for the future.
what you just mentioned is important. Technology has advanced so much in the past years that everybody keeps in mind, this is all a dirty stuff. It is not anymore. It's clean energy, and it's natural, and it would help those countries that sit on it and are able to exploit it, and then can export it in a much cheaper way, and we would not rely on other countries, because as you mentioned before, the Russian gas is now flowing
Yeah,
via China or India, and then we buy it. We Europeans go and buy and have it exported, re-exported. I mean, this is so ridiculous. And then when there would be other solutions.
yeah, and I'd like to go on the fact that the trade in between Europe and North America. Here in Quebec, we have a large resource. Actually, the resource that we have, we could replace Russian gas in Germany for the next 40 years. Okay, if we
Wow.
if we were producing it 100% of the gas, or 50% of the gas for all Europe. So this is really large. What kind of an impact do you think, if we would produce that, could have on the economy of Europe?
And tremendous impact. I mean, just the economic growth that we could see, I mean, inflation would immediately go down by at least a couple of percent. And it would probably create a lot of new jobs again. It would bring people back from their lockdown mentality, and it would unleash creative forces, and of course make Europe competitive again. Because again, we are now heading our energy prices are extremely high. It's not even secure. We were lucky that the last winter was warm. Otherwise, things would have been much worse.
If something not if there's not a change right now, and if you can't get cheaper energy, where is Europe heading?
Down the drain, down the drain. Sorry, my if I'm so direct,
That's really
but
scary when we talk about that. You know it, and on what time span do you see that?
Well, once you have a recession, it can go pretty fast. And we have been in recession now, 3 consecutive quarters, where growth was zero or negative. And in not only in Austria but in Germany especially. And we've always trusted in Germany being the big economic engine for Europe,
Yeah.
and it is currently failing. The engine stutters, unfortunately, for many reasons that we have already discussed. So one great impetus and one big help for the economy in Germany would definitely be cheap energy imports for the industry. I mean, as I mentioned before, now the German industry has to buy expensive nuclear power from the French nuclear power plants, because they shut their own ones down.
Yeah, and natural gas from Qatar, and they have to do whatever they can to try to get energy.
Yeah, and it's much more expensive. So if there is somebody who provides this cheaper energy, I think it would be the most important thing to get, because as we all know, the Russian cheap gas will no longer flow, and Ukrainian gas will also no longer flow via the.
There's a big risk right now for Austria regarding that, because it's still what I read. The majority of the gas in Austria comes still from Russia through Ukraine.
Yeah. Yes, yes, and Zelensky actually announced that he would shut down the pipelines. I don't know if if this is true or not, but I mean, we are lucky in Austria that at least some of or a lot of our energy comes from hydro, and we are independent on that front. But still, our industry need cheap energy, and I'm not a big fan of wind wheels in the mountains. I don't think this is very beautiful, and I don't think it's very efficient. And if you look of how many square meters of concrete
You
are
need to do
needed
that.
to build one single wind wheel, and then you say, is this in balance with our nature? Come on, I think we have better options.
Actually, where I grew up, we had this wind farm that they installed, and they installed 2 windmill on one of my property. And back then, people, that was at the beginning, and in like the 2006-7 when they started that here in Quebec. At first, people didn't realize, but that killed the majority of the bat and the bird. Went to my property, I had all those cadaver of birds laying around, and that's sad, But again, I'm not the guy who want to stop the development. It's and I always believe the right energy at the right place. There's not one single source which is better than the other one.
Yeah, we have a variety and options, and if there is gas, use it and explore it.
Yeah,
And if there is more hydropower to be explored in the mountains, then we should do that.
yeah. As an economist and a libertarian, if you would be elected as chancellor, what would you do tomorrow?
Unleash the economy.
Yeah, really. This is the base of everything. I think, and letting people free also bring a lot of solution that wouldn't be there if you get involved.
Nobody would have ever thought that there would be cheaper options of mining and drilling, and also search for whatever gas, oil, you name it.
Same thing for the medical field. If you want to cure
Yeah,
cancer, you need to, and capitalism is wonderful for that to me, because you're gonna have people rewarded for the time that they put creating something and solving a problem. This is, to me, that's the base of what we're doing. If you could have an impact, what would be the message for the people around the world? Not, of course, you would unleash the economy up there, but if you if you could talk to a North American politician or other politician like that, what advice would you give to the people in the world that we're living right now?
Look at the cost benefit analysis and allow those who have the resources take their risks and make I'm a big fan of the division of labor and a fan of collaboration. So let those people who can do the job, and make sure that the regulatory framework is as easy as possible, and that there is a corridor for opportunities, because in the end everybody will win,
Yeah.
and it's about the win-win and raising up everybody. And it's not about reducing things, it's not about taking away somebody. We don't want one big cake that is divided. We want to bake many, many, many big cakes with the new sources you find.
Right now, you're touring in North America. You're at the convention. Do you plan to bring your show around the world, or is it still just going to be in Europe, or what's the future for your institute?
For the free market roadshow is already in the US as well. We mainly, of course, do the 35 stops in Europe. But then in the US, we also do like 5 to 7 stops up north, and then we are in Dallas. We're in Washington. We might go to Florida as well. But Florida doesn't need kind of libertarian
No.
ideas these days. They're pretty good on that front. I mean, neither does Dallas, but still we have very good connections there with the university and the business environment there. But so it's a given that we go there. But of course, the idea would be to have a constant roadshow. So it's not only before the roadshow, is after the roadshow, but it's constantly the roadshow the entire year. But as you know, those conferences and these organizations take a lot of effort, and it's also about financing those things. We believe in the market, so we raise the money from the market, and we don't get state subsidies, and we don't take them, and so that's always it's a challenge, and it's an, as I said, an intellectual entrepreneur. It's business, and it's great to have like-minded people, and all those people we meet are all on the side of the markets.
Yeah, and the job that you're doing and the message that you carry is really important. And what you just said, you know, I hope that you have all the money that you need to do it. But if if we can help, and that's important to reach out to you, because I know that people will listen that to this podcast will want to get involved. It's you're such an inspiration right now to me, and the way that you're doing your thing. Really curious with all the work that you're doing. How do you have time to be a professor?
Well, I was just on the phone before to kind of get my classes for the end of November organized, and we decided that I will have to teach the entire Friday and the entire Saturday. Uh,
Wow.
since it's master classes, the students are okay with it, but it's sometimes a challenge. But our students at UDG in Montenegro, they are hardworking students. They are all, it's a private university, so they understand what you need to do, what you need to contribute, and that there is no such thing as a free lunch. And I don't mind teaching um, a long day. I think I edutain, because I always have a discussion with the students. We always use practical examples from the current issues that we face, and then elaborate on that. And so it's a mission. Put it this way.
Yeah, you have to believe, really, because I see a Wonder Woman right now in front of me.
Well, thank you.
Congratulations, really, for whatever you do. Uh, to hand that, you probably don't regret not to have choose law school. with with the life that you're living. Can't wait
Well,
to show that to my friend's lawyer what they could have done in life.
well, thank you. I'm sure your friends' lawyers do well.
Oh yeah, they do well, but your life and like I said, the what we exchange today. This is a way that I'm thinking. I've been close to the libertarian here in Quebec. Also, I always believe in the freedom of people. One of the goals that we created this podcast is exactly to bring enough information for people to be free to make their own decision, to understand how it works, to demystify everything. So thank you very much for helping us today. I really appreciate
It's
that.
been a pleasure. Thank
Thanks.
you very much,
Thanks,
Mario.
Barbara.
Thank you.
This concludes this episode on economy. Thank you for joining us this week. Don't forget to tune in for our next episode. To make sure that you don't miss out, visit our website, marioexplore.ca, subscribe to our newsletter, and find out the complete list of where we broadcast. Like, share, comment, and follow us on all our social media. That was Mario Explore. Thank you for being with us today. Until next time, guys.